Hello, everyone. We are here late, but we're here. Got a little bit of that bronchitis happening, right?
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah, so apologies if I'm over here hacking away. I have
might be-
cough drops and coffee, and I'm trying to take slow, deep breaths, so we'll see how it works.
See, all right. Well, I think we got like 5 or 6 reviews this time, man.
Yeah, let's do it. All right. Joe Clone. Oh my gosh, I wasn't expecting this cacophony of cheese. I mean, in the best way, of course. The hot spring scene was a little uncomfortable at first because you didn't specify whether they were wearing bathing suits or not.
I mean, as I understand it, that's usually anime being anime, they don't, but usually that's how I understand it happens.
In America, in Japan, people don't use bathing suits.
No?
No.
Oh, whatever. I don't know. Moving on.
Whether they were wearing... once I figured they had to be, then it felt better. On second thought, I totally mistook it for public bathhouse. My bad. A rundown of Kudai's scars wasn't what I expected, but it gives a pretty good image of how much has changed since the beginning. The banter between our main couple was also adorable. It's great hearing how much Mina is concerned over Kudai. Here's the part with the hair. Nice that Mina's taking the situation in stride. Now, I'm jealous of Kudai. Lucky guy. I want a woman that's like Mina to him. Aww.
I mean, hey man, if you can find someone that good, then hold on.
Yep. Wedding talk. Whoa, that's feeling a bit far off from now, don't you think? I probably would expect this wedding to be final chapter, if not around here. The way he talked about Tensei, you really made me feel like that was real, especially since a few chapters ago we learned about what he did for the Hogasha boys off of the Blood Oath.
Yeah.
Still more SAO connections.
You know I love me some Easter eggs. But I think I don't have I wouldn't even call this a regret, and I don't have a whole lot of those when it comes to this story, but I wish that there were more opportunities for me to show how Kurai and Tensei have interacted leading up to this.
Okay.
But unfortunately, the story doesn't leave a whole lot of room for that. I thought about having him do a scene with the two of them after Tensei had been attacked by Stain, but I feel like if I had done it at that point, it would have been kind of forced and would have felt like a cheap pull on heartstrings. Plus, it seemed to me like the Ida family would keep that thing kind of private.
Yeah.
At least the interactions kind of private, even from family friends. So it just didn't feel like the right timing.
Yeah. All right.
But yeah.
Oh, Akurui, you little troll. Didn't know what it was until later, but wow. Proposal. We got a proposal. This can only mean a lot of bad news right after.
Why do you assume that?
Naboo Island was the last time we felt like there was no stopping these two, and then he died.
Okay, that's fair.
I don't want to make any predictions because you always prove me wrong, except that one time. I don't expect a repeat. We are getting into Humorize movie pretty soon. Okay, time to throw away the fear and forge ahead. Go beyond plus Utura. Sorry, Magnus chase the dragon tears. Let's go.
You always have to get back. You always have to get back to that, don't you?
Please Utura. Sorry, if I've seen it in Japanese the first time, that there's certain things that just stick in my brain.
I thought you saw My Hero in dub first. The first thing
few
you saw,
episodes. The first few episodes, yes.
No, the first thing you saw in Japanese would have been the movie.
That's right. All right. Either way, there's certain things that just stick with me. All right. Thanks
you, Joe. For your review.
All right. Thank you, Joe Clone. Fairy Sing Girl. Yay! A whole new chapter of Kudai and Mina spending time together. That was cute when they were talking about plans for their future wedding. And ending with Kudai proposing to Mina was best of all. Well, thank you, Fairy Sin Girl.
Yeah, she's been playing catch up.
All right.
Glad to see you finally in the reviews again.
Okay, Silver 4700.
All right, let's hear it.
Do you have your mouth guard in?
I think you said he liked this one.
Oh, okay, cool. If I'm being blunt, I don't have a lot to say regarding this chapter. Most of the time, I leave a massive essay because I genuinely love reviewing, but there's not a whole lot for me to say here.
It was a fairly short chapter compared to a lot of the other ones, to be fair.
With that said, this was still a surprisingly fun chapter to read for me. Honestly, I don't know why. Could be some kind of vicarious feeling, but I genuinely don't know. I always complain about filler, but this was a good middle ground for me.
Yay!
It was fun for just to see them talk about them and even their possible future wedding. And nothing about weddings are ever simple. Insert Steve Martin's Father of the Bride here.
I love that movie. I think I watched that movie like the last time I was at my parents' house before we got married.
Really?
Yeah. It was like the day before Barnsley arrived for the wedding.
Oh gosh.
I was hanging out with my family. We watched The Father of the Bride.
I haven't seen that movie. I genuinely, that's a pre-Joseph movie because there's not much I remember.
That movie is so great.
We got to watch it again. Overall, even seeing him formally propose was fun. I don't have a lot to say and I don't have a reference, but good job. Thanks.
Yay.
Silver.
All right.
Yay. He didn't beat you up today.
I finally did it.
All right.
I got a review without a lot of criticisms, which
Yes.
I do enjoy. Don't get me wrong.
Oh my goodness. So
I told you a couple of these were long.
This is a guest reviewer. Do you think? Oh, it's Ever to Be All Might.
It's Endeavor to Be
Endeavor
All Might.
to Be All Might. Do I do this bottom one first?
Do you want to? Let's see. Should we
Do you want to read it?
I can do these ones.
Okay. All right. I'll let you do it because I'm not sure which one's first. If it's the bottom one or the top one.
The bottom one was.
Oh, it's the bottom one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Endeavor to Be All Might would have been first.
All right. Well, I think they're both. Oh, Silly Kita and Endeavor to Be All Might. All right. Cool. I guess I'll let you take this one.
Okay. All right. Been a while since we heard from this guy. Let's see. Endeavor to Be All Might says, spoiler for the story ahead in this review. Skip ahead if you want to read with fresh eyes. I always appreciate the disclaimer. Let's see. Hello again. This seems like a good place in the story for me to summarize my thoughts on the last few chapters' developments, so here we go. We shall begin with the Ruined Future arc, which had just about everything I could want in a high-stakes installment. Bleak, nearly impossible circumstances, most of our heroes dead, a corrupted justice system, the characters who remain being so worn and changed by the years. In some respects, I wish we could have had a longer look into the world that Future Eri came from, but I understand that is not the story we have come to focus on. The only thing that I really wanted to see, but I suppose never will, is future Shuken. I feel like he and Akadori would have created the most insane shenanigans for the Paranormal Liberation Front to deal with, even in spite of, or perhaps, or more likely because of, the circumstances leading up to the world's ruin. I killed Shuken got killed off pretty early in the future, and whether it was on purpose or whether it was just because they were caught in a massive attack or whatever, and it was an indiscriminate killing. That has not been revealed. I don't know if I'm ever going to reveal it. But yeah, Shuken wasn't around, sad as that is to say. Let's see. Then again, maybe that's why Shuken couldn't be in the picture. The two of them would just be too powerful. But I do sincerely feel as though there was a missed opportunity. Though I do suppose that having Shuken survive would have lent itself to the possibility of too much levity. And you clearly were not going for sillies, though we did get a few chuckles out of some of the scenes, such as Kota being apprenticed to Gale Force. Yeah, that was fun. I was leaning into a darker theme for those chapters, but you know me, I don't like doing one-tone chapters or stories. Brilliant use of both characters, by the way. It's a big world after all. Not every majorly plot-relevant character should come from UA, and this makes a fine bridge between keeping us attached to the familiar and giving us a slightly wider look at what's going on in the apocalypse, such as it is or was. I greatly enjoyed the moment where Kodai absolutely loses his mind and is somehow the one making the most sense in the context of the conversation. That is, he seems to be the only one in the group to realize that his resurrection was the result of Eri making a rushed decision based on emotion. He recognized immediately that her bringing him back to the fight wasn't really a calculated move to ensure their collective survival, as it was a little girl wanting her hero to take away her problems again. I'm not bashing on Eri, honest. The mistake, as it was, is fully understandable, even arguably excusable, given the circumstances. Even so, that does not diminish the fact that her actions caused a lot of problems that could have been avoided if she had thought more about why she was doing what she was doing, as opposed to focusing solely on how she was going to do it. And I love it. I love the fact that even though we, the audience, can clearly see the problems that this will cause, she, the character, could not, or perhaps would not. How often?
I love that dramatic irony.
Yeah. That's, yeah. Let's see. How often have we blundered through life, making mistakes left and right, yet convinced that all the get convinced all the same that we are in the right. Aerie's mistakes make her far more relatable than I could have expected her to be, given how often in literature, the person who comes back in time to save everyone is never made to face the fact by the others that they may have done more harm than good. I'm not saying that Aerie has made a mistake, according to the narrative anyway, but her being called out by Kurai, the person whom she thought she was helping, was one of those moments of realistic interaction that I have come to expect and appreciate from your story on the regular. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think I was saying something about just because we know better, just because we understand the consequences of just because we understand the consequence. Like, I don't know that anybody could have predicted the consequences of Kurai possibly going insane, but I think more people were worried about the idea that the story would become too easy.
Yeah.
Obviously I knew more than you guys did concerning this. But yeah, you guys, we have a more objective look at things as opposed to what Aerie could see. So yeah, I'm glad somebody else can note that. Let's see. Savage Akuduri is savage, and I'm so happy that he is back in full force, if not better than before. The second that Ida said that Kurai was beyond even Ashido's reach, I knew. I instantly knew who was going to be the one to bring Kurai back to his senses, or at least start him on the path to recovery. It had to come from Akuduri. He's the only one in Kurai's life who's come close to being able to relate to just how much he has suffered, which is probably the biggest reason for his listening to Akuduri, and not just pushing him away like everyone else. I know that them being brothers has a lot to do with it, but other than knowing the manner in which to approach Kurai, while he was sulking, for lack of a stronger term, yeah, we'll call that sulking, I think it was their collective misery that allowed them to have a conversation on the subject of mistreating others amid their respective agonies as equals. It seemed one-sided on the first read-through, but after coming to learn just how hard it is to actually hold a conversation with Akuduri as an equal at all, I can see the underlying back and forth that was happening while he was smacking his brother around. Let's see. I was worried for a moment that we would be seeing an easily recovered Kurai following his talk with Akuduri, but the second you changed his dynamic with Ashido, I actually breathed a sigh of relief in knowing that you weren't going to make things easy for him. As I've stated in another review, I've come to care about the dynamic between the two of them, and I love that you care enough to realize that things couldn't go back to normal, at least not immediately, after such an emotional upheaval. I doubt that things are going to be exactly the same for anyone in Class 1A once Kurai comes back to UA as a hero, but his and her strained interactions are probably the most vivid representation of that fact. I could, with something. ADD. I'm listening. Okay, with something that tumultuous, to have them go back to normal immediately, that just would have been cheap. It would have been shonen has a lot of tropes, and the easy fix is one that I'm not a fan of. Despite what some people have probably argued against in the reviews, I'm not about making this too easy for the protagonists. I'm trying to, because I've introduced new characters to this dynamic, to the story, I have to also add new challenges. And I think that some of, if not the hardest challenges to overcome are the ones that we have, not only within our own minds, but in our interactions with the people that we care about. Yeah. Because if those relationships go sour, it can make all the difference in the world. It can make your life so much worse. If you're not able to rectify that. So that felt like a natural progression, B, the appropriate consequence to the fallout of his actions. Let's see. In the journey to heal his mind, you created a very different brand of challenge for Kurai as opposed to a newer, tougher punching bag for Kai. See, there you go. Don't mistake my words. I'm well aware of the mental turmoil that Kurai has undergone throughout the story, but he's always been able to more or less punch his problems in the end. With his sanity in question, however, it forced him to an arena where the answer could not be his fists, nor even his own understanding of the situation.
Sorry.
You all right? Yeah. You forced him to rely on others to help him, a trait that might have saved his life on Nabu Island, interestingly enough. Yeah, I was trying to get at that a little bit. It's like, oh, you still didn't learn your lesson. Well, okay, let's make you learn the lesson. My my dojo that I trained in for a long time had this saying on the wall that I'm pretty sure my sensei came up with, which was, when all else fails, try doing what your sensei suggested.
I think we had one like that at the barn too.
Okay.
When all else fails,
do what your
trainer said.
Okay, yeah. All right. Well, there you go. Let's see. Let's see. I suspected fairly quickly that his mind was not damaged quite in the way that everyone else was assuming it to be, but I'm glad that you kept things just ambiguous enough for me not to be able to make a definitive prediction concerning the matter. Using his vestige as a catalyst for him to get the help that he needed was very well played, because he was probably never going to get that kind of help properly unless something even more drastic happened. And I honestly don't think I want to know what could be considered more drastic to him than the last few weeks/months of his life/death. The timing was well paced concerning the build-up to his return to Kai, though I do have some criticisms to insert. You once again, in my opinion anyway, started to tread the path of allowing a fuller lull in the action than I think is good for a story to have. I understand the need for things to play out in their entirety concerning the characters surrounding Kodai's life at this rather tumultuous time, but if I could make a suggestion that the next time you feel the need to comprehensively cover such a period of time, you might want to add a touch more action to things. I'm not saying that it should have been a plot-heavy battle or anything, but maybe a little glimpse into what Ashido's internship looked like in person, as opposed to a brief overview in order to spice the pacing just a tad. Yeah, alright, I can see how that comes about. I don't know. Maybe I hyper focused on the mentality of everything a little too much. Mm-hmm. Maybe I thought I was doing a good job of like keeping track of everything that was going on around, but maybe I did. Maybe it's one of those things where it's I kept track of everything going on, but I didn't translate it into paper.
You do that sometimes.
Okay.
I have to say though, like My Hero kind of has like the writing style of the original canon is very much like that, where like, you know, really meaty stuff is happening and then all of a sudden you'll get this brief overview. It'll be like a little musical overture and you kind of see what's happening with everyone really quick within like a 1 minute blip at the most, and then you're back to story, even though you've like whizzed by a bunch of stuff and like a bunch of time has gone by, and that kind of throws me off with the show too. So I mean, I can see how you're kind of going on with the writing style of the original canon, but at the same time, it's like as a reader, when you're reading something, you want to get into the nitty, as Nacho Libre say, I want to hear the nitty gritty, right? And that's why we read, right? But I don't know, it's hard to say though, because other people have complained that it's just so long too. And so you have to, as the storyteller,
it's a really hard balancing act.
You have to kind of say, okay, how much time do I want to spend on this, because it is turning into a total novella. But at the same time, it's like what are the important things to gloss over? What do I need to cover? And so, but yeah, I think sometimes what happens is you'll have something all figured out in your brain, but you don't necessarily articulate it. And that's not necessarily a bad thing all the time.
Because, like, to me, I think what ends up happening is, like, I'll construct the story to a degree that's, like, even if I don't get down and explain something happening exactly, there's enough context provided to other people, like, not even needing it to be covered. It just, you know, that's just an assumed thing.
Sorry, I'm, like, distracted because I think that all of the bookends are in backward. That's why I keep looking up.
They're not.
They're not?
Nope.
The little feet things are pointed under the books?
They're not supposed to be.
They are supposed to be.
No, they're not. Not the way those ones work. I'll explain it later. But
okay.
we got a thing to do.
Sorry. I'm stressed. Sorry. I'm like ADD. I'm like taking decorations and moving them behind him just because they're bothering me. Okay. Sorry. Continue. My bad. This is the problem with doing it during the day and having coffee, because I'm like, oh, I got to do this and this and this. But conversation. I'm here. I promise. Oh.
Let's see. I also raised my eyebrow at the introduction of Teen Juniper and the two American teachers. I can understand the potential that they carry, as I have watched Ice Queendom and some of the early episodes of Ruby since I started reading this story for the purposes of context and satisfying my own idle curiosities. But I worry that you may be biting off more than you can chew in terms of character handling. You've been doing more than well in balancing the new dynamics between this altered Class 1A. But now you've not only got future Area in the mix, there's a half dozen new side characters to share the screen time. I have faith that you have a plan for all of this, so I will reserve final judgment until a later time. But I still thought to list my initial concerns. However, sorry, go ahead.
I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay. However, when we got to the scene of the bomb going off in the Kanto ward, I found myself very close to the edge of my seat at a speed that I'm not entirely sure was healthy. You had planted the seeds concerning the possibility of his return twice over in the previous chapters with Akuru and Aries' points of view. So I had the feeling that we would finally be getting to at least something in the way of a development concerning Kodai's treatment, if not an outright solution to the issue. I was charmed by the conversation taking place between him and Rei Todoroki, though I honestly failed to see its true relevance to the circumstances until the explosion happened. I was trying to understand how this would show us a new development in his healing psyche, as has been shown to varying degrees in the other chapters while he was in the hospital, so that something like a terrorist strike wasn't even on my radar when it happened in the story. I know that some of the other reviewers have already said as much, but allow me to echo the sentiment that the chapter He Lives was worth reading twice over immediately, attributing to the fact that the Kai who made the explosive return was not, in fact, the same one whom we have been following this entire time, but rather the echo of the man that exists inside of One for All. His interactions with his friends must have been truly excruciating, knowing that his time with them was limited to the passing on of the barest of essential information before he had to take off in order to set his current self straight once and for all. I'm glad that our Kai is back, but in all honesty, I would love to see future Kai have another chance to interact with his classmates, especially Ashido, because I honestly have no idea how the conversation would even go. I mean, she's still head over heels for the current Kurai, but the future guy's feelings for her must still be there, so yeah, that's a complication I'm going to leave in your hands.
The feels. I hadn't even thought of that. No. Ouch, bro.
Yeah?
Ouch.
You hadn't considered that?
No.
Yeah?
I had not considered that.
Yeah, that's 100% a thing.
Ouch.
Yep. Yeah. Hang on to that thought. Hang on to that thought for a bit. Why don't you? Let's see. In the meantime, allow me to once again bask in the utter savagery of Akudori Hikari, who stonewalled Principal Nezu of all people.
Oh no.
The intelligence that it took for that to work is, once again, in my mind, nothing compared to the sheer audacity of this child.
Exactly.
Don't get me wrong, the boy is obviously brilliant, but just how? How does one have the confidence to even think about pulling one over on the mammal, bear, dog, marsupial, whatever the hell he is?
That's like trying to pull one up on Dumbledore. Almost, not quite.
Not quite,
but it's along the same lines.
Yeah. One does not simply ghost the principal of UA. Unless your name happens to be Akudori Hikari, apparently. Give this guy his own series, I beg of you. Missed an opportunity to make the best boy the main character with Kurai's resurrection. Last time I'll say anything about that, I swear. Moving on.
Oh man, don't you worry. Our sassy boy is not done yet.
Oh no, he's nowhere close to done. We're gonna. I've said it before. I'll say it again. We're getting a lot more Akudori moving forward. It's gonna be fun.
I have so many spoilers and I can't say anything. It sucks. I'm sorry, guys.
It's gonna be awesome. The reason for the Hikari's hatred of the Yakuza was honestly bone-chilling. I wish I could view their treatment by the hands of the gang as somewhat incredulous, or perhaps something that only exists in fiction to create monsters out of people, but unfortunately current world events lend that rather particular development to some rather disturbing authenticity. I'm not trying to start some kind of political debate with that or anything. I understand this chapter was posted before things in the Middle East became what they are as of the writing of this review. You couldn't have known what was to come, obviously. All that said, Akudori's tale of their desperate escape as children from their captors hit rather close to home with things being what they are with current world events. I apologize if that put a damper on things, but the resonance of the subject matter was too intense for me to simply gloss over it. Yeah.
No, man. I mean, I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, it wasn't on purpose.
For me, you know, and fiction mimics reality, and it's, for me, it's good to just kind of slow down and think about the parallels, because I think everybody is sifting through a lot of big emotions right now, and you know, and it's been really personal for us, and I won't go into it too much, but all I'll say is, you know, when navigating this kind of thing and figuring out how to move forward and heal while all of this horror is still going on, fiction is such a blessing, because, you know, and it's not to say that we're in an unhealthy way escaping from reality, but I think that art allows you to sort through these emotions and move forward without dwelling on it, you know? And so, I mean, for me, I was in a major funk, and I'm still recovering from it, but it's been really, really hard, because, like I said, it's kind of a personal thing for us. And so the week after, like, once I had gone through, because, you know, there was a lot of fasting and praying happening, and
these guys know that I'm of Jewish descent. My family escaped the Russian purges.
And I grew up going to synagogue as a little girl too.
My family escaped the Russian purges in the late 1800s, early 1900s. So.
And I also grew up with really, really close friends who are Muslim. My best friend, one of my best friends growing up, and so it breaks my heart to see everything going on. But that being said, before I get all teary-eyed, part of me being able to function was just being able to slow down and straight up just listen to The Fellowship of the Ring on audiobook while I was going through while I was going throughout my day. Once I, because me, I'm really bad at doom scrolling. I will sit there and I will read.
Oh yeah, you'll go so far into the black hole.
I will read every article.
You'll just reach the event horizon.
I will read every article on every side. I will get furious, and not to say that's a bad thing, but I think I have to be able to take a little step back. And say, okay, well, where does this put me now? And just to be able to de-escalate my own emotions, it's so nice to have like my comfort fiction. Yeah. And just being able to go in and like listen to a familiar story.
The Hobbit was written for Tolkien to deal with what he saw and had to deal with in World War II. Mm-hmm.
And same thing with
or was it World War I or II?
World War II. It would have been the Lord of the Rings more so, because the Hobbit was more geared toward children. With C.S. Lewis, it was actually his space trilogy.
It was
Paralandra, which is the second book in his space trilogy, really deals with a lot of angst and PTSD that he has, and it's actually the hardest one. I've actually never been able to get through that one in one sitting. Mm-hmm. I've read Out of the Silent Planet and That Hideous Strength, but because of all the emotional turmoil and anger, it's not like him to write from a place of anger. Mm-hmm. Because of that, Paralandra is really hard to get through. And that he's really good at always bringing it back to a poetic source of justice, but
it's hard to get through.
There's some serious anger happening. And so I think, and so like by the same token, authors deal with their emotions in their own way. But for me, having a work of art that I can just kind of lean into and feel these emotions through and calm myself through is such a blessing. And I'm so thankful that we have music and literature and visual art just to push through. And I've been sick, so I totally fell off the bandwagon on Inktober, but having art, being able to create artwork is also really therapeutic. So, sorry, long tangent, but
it's a tangent worth pursuing, I think.
And I think we've discussed it a little bit briefly in the Discord, and it's it's hard because we are in a time when the world is so interconnected, and you got that 5 degree theory, or 6 degree, where within 6 connections you're connected with everybody in the world, right? And it's really wild just being able to say that I know people who live there, and it's really, and we have a group of friends who just came back right before everything went down, and that was really like crazy. But anyway, that being said, I think we're entering this era where world events like this are going to be more and more impactful. I think when we were growing up, even there were certain things that would be upsetting to a certain degree, but we are so interconnected with the news, and we have relationships with people on the other side of the world, and it's easy to keep those relationships up. And so that makes it even more difficult not to feel this impact no matter who you are. And so it's just, I don't know. I'm thankful that you brought it up, just because I think it's important to talk about and to think about. And we did discuss it briefly in the Discord, but like whether it doesn't even have to be a debate.
Yeah.
But, just listening to each other, processing this is so important. So anyway, I think it was at the last review. No, one more review.
No, we're not even done with this review.
No, we're not done with this review. Okay, cool. Keep going.
A couple more paragraphs on this one. Let's see. I'm happy to say that we can end this review on a significantly lighter note, all things considered. Kai's return in force was well handled, but I especially enjoyed the way that you have, up to this point at least, handled his healing process. I don't get the sense that he's done with that whole bit just yet, but it is nice to see this character get a chance to simply take a moment and truly relax. I know I harped on about you taking too long to get the action going, but allow me a moment of hypocrisy in saying that Kurdai has well and truly earned a moment to just stop and enjoy being where he is, even if it involves a full, sappy chapter that ends with a proposal so cliche it belongs in a Hallmark movie, in an American Hallmark movie.
Oh gosh, yeah.
That was your stepmom's favorite kind of movie, right?
Oh gosh. I would be like,
Christmas was her favorite time of year, not because of all the holiday cheer and all that, because she got so many
freaking
Hallmark movies.
And I'd walk in the room, I'd watch like 30 seconds of it, and then I'd look at her and I would explain the rest of the plot. And she's like, "Have you seen it?" I'm like, "No."
They just all follow the same formula.
They all follow the same, like, one of three things is going to happen. Let me lay it out for you. And then she'd be like, "How do you do that?" And I'm like,
"They're all the same."
Oh my gosh. Like, even pre-Joseph, Rebecca could figure that one out. Ugh.
Let's see. Hey, I'm still going to be reading the story after this. I'm allowed to say that there was a bit too much cheddar for my liking, while also acknowledging that the moment of his and Ashido's rest is more than deserved. Both of them have been through so damn much, both together and perhaps more importantly apart, that to give them this time to recuperate and fully realize what they mean to one another feels only natural to their character progression. And without the promise of death hanging over Kurai in terms of your own meta reveals, the audience can now actually begin to hope for a happy ending for the two of them. That seems too easy for you. I'm not saying that one of them is going to die, but you're planning something. What are you planning? I very much look forward to finding out, because damn it, am I a sucker for plot twists that are especially dark in nature. And given how happy all this is getting and your streak of deviousness, I cannot bring myself to accept that things will continue to remain so for very long. Happy writing to you, Mataris. Until the next time.
Thanks.
You people think that little of me. Oh man.
I'm not saying
Well, endeavor to be All Might. It's always good to see you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for the review. Let's see.
I have a place for these now. I'm making a pile.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, guys. You don't see what he's seeing. Normally, I'm recording this when I'm half asleep. Right now, not only is it the daytime.
She's like bouncing off the walls almost here.
Well, I'm used to working and like constantly moving. Sitting down this much during the day is not something I'm used to
right
anymore.
for you, right?
No. Like, now that I'm starting to feel less like death, I'm like, okay, well, I'm sitting here categorizing everything on his desk. Not that his desk isn't even messy. I'm just organizing it further. Sorry. Continue. One more review.
Let's see. Silicura. Hey, we got a fun chapter that promises more good times down the line. A lot of cuteness is going on in this chapter, though flavored with some fairly serious material. Unlike chapters up to now, however, the seriousness was appropriately lightened by our characters' current headspaces. It was strangely refreshing to see Kurai and Mina talking about all the crazy stuff that has happened to them, while smiling and laughing during something as simple and carefree as a date. I mean, the events have obviously been discussed before now, both in story and out, but this is the first time that it has felt so natural, without any underlying tension to strain the moment, if that makes any sense. They're both just happy, and it's weird to see them being so without having the thought hanging over my head that he is doomed to die before he will ever achieve any of his goals. I think the best way to put it is that I am able to really be happy for them without any underlying dread for the first time since the story has begun.
That's a good point.
Yeah, like you guys have I know that you guys have definitely like felt happy for them and stuff. That's an interesting way of putting it. Is like you can actually like be like you can be happy for them because there's, if nothing else, there is the possibility that they could have their happy ending. That's not to say that I wouldn't put it past you to yank the rug out from under us once again, but now at least I know their happiness and future together has a real chance of success, which gives me a whole new reason to enjoy the story. See, there you go. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know what that is.
It's a clay scoring tool, and I don't know how it got in my house and out of... Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
Continue.
Let's see. I really liked how you shed a little more light on how highly Kurai views Tensei with his decision to have him in place of his father come their eventual wedding. This is once again one of those things I would never even think about, much less this far in advance, but it simply goes to show an impressive capacity for planning and foresight on your part. If I had even considered this kind of thing, I probably would have stuck in Dad Zao with the job since he is one of Kurai's legal guardians now. Sorry, now I'm just spitballing. Moving on. Don't worry about it. Was what I would normally like to say, but I think I've already said everything that I wanted to say about this chapter, other than the fact that I love the proposal scene. Glad that Akudori got to have a hand in it like the two brothers wanted, even if it was somewhat an indirect one. Yeah, that's right. Before Kurai went to Nabu Island, Akudori and him were... Akudori was like, I want to help. He's like, I'm going to help you plan out the proposal. Kurai's like, what, do you honestly expect me to think that you don't already have like 3 dozen ways to do the proposal? And he's like, I've only got 30. I'm slowing down in my old age. I remember having fun with that interaction. But yeah, Akudori, he didn't have a direct hand in it, but he definitely got to help, and I was glad that I was able to bring that to a full circle. Foreboding preview is foreboding. Kodai Amina may have found a true measure of happiness again, but it seems like the trauma isn't quite done with him in particular. Which, I mean, good. We wouldn't want this to be too easy, now would we? Happy writing until the next chapter, good sir. As always, I look forward to it. And that is the last review.
Nice.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
No, that was a solid. That was a solid. I like the way he looked at it.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I knew that would be the case, but like I never put it into words so much.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's how I look at a lot of shows that I love that make me mad.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like, you gotta have some question that makes you want to keep going, right?
Yeah.
You can't just sum it up before the story's done. Yeah. And so you know, give everybody a little bit of a, you know,
give everyone a bit of a reprieve.
That's the word I was looking for. But
I'm surprised by how well this chapter was received. I honestly thought I was going to get more people saying,
I thought you were
"All right,
going to get slammed for the cheese."
I didn't think I was going to get slammed for the cheese as much as I was going to get slammed for the pacing again. Because I know
but it's a short chapter.
Yeah, it was a short chapter.
That being said, let's start moving on to the ramping up of
the things.
Yeah, let's do it.
We'll catch you guys soon.
I've been wandering in my mind lately. I've been looking for a place to rest my head, for the road that lies ahead. Always fighting for the ones beside me. You could try it, but her heart's so far from dead. You will believe it. I look at fear in the eye, as we met before. Stirring every lie, someone's at the door. You keep walking the line, I stuck to the floor. Nothing wrong in my mind, I've always wanted more. I've been walking on coals high for my whole life. Gotten better to bruise just to get it right. Climbing every hilltop through pain and strife. But when my summit is reached, I'll be out of sight. And I'll keep holding on, building the life that I've been dreaming. Holding on, carrying my heart to the end. And then I'll see who was wrong. Will I reach the heights I'm scaling? I'll rise above, so in the fire within. So in the fire within.
Short but sweet. It was late morning at the Haneda airport, and Kodai was waiting for something to go utterly wrong, as it often did for him. It took everything he had in him not to fidget, pace, look nervous, or even out of place in the bustling center of transportation that was Japan's gateway to the rest of the world. He knew he appeared as relaxed and casual as any traveler without a reason to be nervous ought to, but he still couldn't wait to get past the security checkpoints, where the odds of him being recognized and put up on social media would substantially decrease. Beyond that, once he made it to Clade, there was virtually no chances at all that someone would realize who he was, which would be a big load off of his shoulders. The thought that it was the lack of any sort of disguise that had him so apprehensive in his current setting did occur to him, but it didn't keep his teeth from being on constant edge. He was dressed in a typical vacationer's outfit: loose jeans, comfortable sneakers on his feet, topped with a t-shirt and an open hoodie that he kept pulled back. His instinct was to pull it up to help cover his profile, but he knew that would look way too suspect in an airport of all places. The only thing that was really keeping him anonymous for the moment was, ironically, his undisguised appearance. He even had dark circles under his eyes as the result of a night spent in the grip of several chilling nightmares that saw to him waking up in a cold sweat while swiping at the air in a frenzied panic as his fiancée worked tirelessly to calm him back down and lull him back into a state of slumber as many times as she needed to. The first couple of nights had been restful enough for him. Having Mina by his side certainly helped to keep his nerves steadied after his ordeal in Kanto. But now he knew that it was more due to the night terror suppression medication that his body hadn't quite passed from his system. Now that his innards had finished processing and purging the chemicals after 3 full days without a new dose, he saw many things whenever he tried to descend back into the realm of rest. Nine would be sneering at him as he choked the life from his broken body. Moonfish would cackle as he devoured his arm anew. The Shadow Nomu and its army of slaves came to take him back to Shigaraki, who would taunt his restless mind and torture his flesh endlessly as he sought to take one for all on behalf of his master. The end result was that Kurai now looked the part of a jet-lagged traveler on his way either into or out of Japan. Maybe it wasn't even his lack of sleep or appearance itself that made him nervous, though. Perhaps it had to do that with that of his traveling companion. Mina was also dressed in casual clothes, but there wasn't a lot she could have done to disguise her pink skin and sand-colored horns without Yaoyorozu's help, which had led a number of people staring from a distance, and even a few approaching the girl to ask for an autograph or offer condolences. These interactions had been largely brought about by the story the news had run following Kurai's death during the Battle of Nabu Island, which had named her as one of the heroes who had participated against the vastly powerful Nine, and as one of the people who had survived losing their classmate. Despite the fact that she had never interviewed for the matter, nor had anyone in their school, Class 1A had been featured in the news often enough for those who were curious to be able to identify her in public. Due to predicting this fact, they had agreed that while they were waiting for Ari and Gran Torino to arrive with their luggage, they would keep within eyeshot of one another, but would not be in direct proximity to each other as to avoid the chances that someone might figure out his identity based on their interactions with one another. Also to this end, Mina had, quite reluctantly, put her engagement ring on a necklace and kept it tucked inside her shirt. They definitely didn't need people asking questions about why she would suddenly be wearing such a piece during this time, when Kurai had been supposedly dead a mere 2 months. After going through all the trouble to keep his resurrection a secret, they were determined to make sure that they stuck it out until the end, even if it wasn't their preference to be keeping their distance so soon after he put an engagement ring on her hand. He was hoping Tokoyami was able to adequately explain things to Hawks and Todoroki to his dad. Kurai thought as he kept a sharp eye out for the number 1 and 2 heroes, both of whom were scheduled to leave at a similar time to his flight. Akudori had sent Mina a message saying that they would be running into some of their friends at the airport, as well as their current mentors, and that they would be doing their best to explain his revival without revealing the secret of One for All. Since they had yet to receive a message saying that they had failed said task, he was hoping it meant they would be able to keep their heads down, even when they inevitably crossed paths in the terminal. He was about to signal Mina that he wanted to go get a drink when a familiar figure caught his eye. It took him a moment to be sure, but once he raised a hand in greeting with a smile pulling at the corners of his mouth. Not 3 seconds later, he was all but bowled over when a girl with a mop of raven tresses threw her arms around him and buried her face in his shoulder as she started to cry with relief. "Hey, it's okay," he said in a gentle tone as soon as he had recovered his breath and returned the hug. "I'm alright, see?" He had to bite back his instinct to curse as his wounds flared with pain from the rough contact, but quickly realized that the aches and stinging were starting to subside. "I'm so glad," Ari cried as she squeezed as hard as she could, her horn glowing softly as the pain of his wounds receded into memory. You're really coming back to the hero course? Well, I can't afford to make things too easy for the villains now, can I?" Kurai grinned tiredly as she pulled back to look at him through tear-filled eyes, his flesh fully restored to how it had been before he had been injured by One for All 4 days ago. And it's not really fair to leave the fate of the world to one kid now, is it? Gotta have 2 or 3 of us at a minimum. Ari dashed at her eyes while a smile started to work its way across her face. Acid Queen was right, she said, her voice still shaky as she did. About what? You're really good at getting people to smile when they're sad. Kurai scratched the back of his head while chuckling before he said, I don't know if I'm that good at it, but I do know I don't like seeing people I care about down in the dumps. If I can turn their day around, do my best to make it happen. So saying, he pulled the girl in for another hug as he added, It's good to see you doing well, Ari. Everyone's been singing your praises when I've talked to them on the phone. That means a lot coming from you. Both teenagers turned to see a grumpy-looking older man dressed in white and yellow hero's outfit, pulling along a small trolley loaded with a handful of bags and a couple of suitcases. Your generation needs a refresher course on how to treat the elderly, he grumbled. Also airport etiquette. What kind of idiot runs off and leaves their bags in the middle of a luggage terminal? That's how the bomb squads get called in. Sorry, Gran Torino, sir. Ari apologized as she pulled away from Kurai and made a short bow in his direction. It won't happen again. The old hero muttered as he let go of the cart and moved to look his new charge up and down. You've been on the wrong end of a fair number of fights now, haven't you, boy? You could say that, Kurai admitted as he looked over his shoulder to see that Mina had recognized who he was talking to and was now on her way to the security checkpoint, having already checked in her travel luggage. The briefcase with her hero outfit would serve as her carry-on for the flight, as would Kurai's, now that Ari and Gran Torino had brought it. Akudori had texted the pair of them their tickets this morning, so they had taken care to print them out shortly after arriving in the terminal. I know, that's why I'm saying it. The elderly hero now deadpanned in response to Kurai's previous statement. Well, at least when we begin your training, we won't have to worry about you shattering your fingers and toesies like your little friend. It'll be more like when I trained Toshinori back in the day. The last part he added with a slightly evil grin that set the pair of One for All wielders on edge. We should probably get the stuff checked in so we can make the flight in time, Kurtai said as he indicated their compiled luggage. Can I check my bags, make sure everything is in place? Be quick about it. Gran Torino nodded. Yes, sir. Pulling the trolley aside, he removed a small suitcase that belonged to him, and quickly checked to make sure that he had several days' worth of clothes inside that would be preferable for a warmer climate, since they were headed for southern Europe, where even winters were considered to be pretty comfortable in terms of temperature. Also inside was a bottle full of his prescribed sleep-assisting medication, which would last him a month, though he hoped that his mission wouldn't take quite that long. Akuri packed your bag for you, Ari informed him as he nodded and started to zip the suitcase back up. Her face was still somewhat tear-stained, but she was also smiling, which he took as a good sign on her part. I figured that's why I checked it, he admitted with another grin. I was half expecting there to be a half-melted chocolate in my jeans, but so far so good. Wait, has he done that? Twice, actually, Kurtai muttered in exasperation. I'm honestly more disappointed in myself than him for letting it happen the second time. After inspecting the briefcase holding his hero gear while Ari stood guard to make sure that no one was peeking at the contents, Kurtai informed his mentor and new comrade that everything was in order. He'd been informed that a saber was not going to be included in his luggage, as they didn't want to have any more inspections into his gear than was absolutely necessary, which he had accepted without complaint. Following that, they checked their luggage and made their way through the security checkpoints, fortunately without any questions being asked. Since he was traveling undercover, Nezu had authorized Yayorozu and Akudori to make him a fake passport that would get him into Clade, though he also had the boy take his real passport, on the off chance that his brother's technical skills failed them, and he needed to prove that he was not someone on the run from the law. Of course, if it came to that, there would be a lot of explaining that would need to be done on his and Yue's part, but it was still better than him winding up in prison for trying to illegally cross the border. Fortunately, it didn't come to that, and Kurtai continued to maintain his identity as Madara Kayaba, since he had grown used to going by the name in a public setting. Thank the World Heroes Alliance for looser scrutiny when it comes to traveling heroes right now, Kurtai had thought as they approached the terminal where their plane was scheduled to arrive sometime in the next half hour. Now that they were past security and had only to wait for their transport, Mina was able to come to be a part of their small group. So you're the one that Nezu said was important enough to tag along if I was going to take this guy with me, huh? Gran Torino asked as he jerked a thumb at Kurtai and looked the pink girl up and down. Well, like I said, it's no skin off my back if you come with us, but I'm not responsible for your safety when we get to Clade. Understood, sir, she said with a bright grin and a mock salute. I won't be holding you back, don't worry. She'll probably end up saving us a few times before all is said and done, Kurtai added with a matching grin of his own. Gran Torino rolled his eyes before he shuffled off while grumbling, You two remind me of Nana and her husband back in the day. I'm gonna grab some pastries. If you want any, come while I'm feeling like sharing. If not, you're getting your own grub, newbies, and that goes for the plane ride, too. As tempting as that sounds, I think we've got other business to attend to, Kurtai said as he jerked his head over his shoulder. This led the others to see a towering man with red hair who was accompanied by 4 students in familiar uniforms, all of them approaching their general direction. I'll run interference, see what the situation with him is, Mina said as she quickly moved away from their group, calling out to Izuku and Todoroki as they came nearer. Meanwhile, Ari and Kurtai moved into one of the souvenir shops while Gran Torino left to do his own thing. Fortunately for us, people have a hard time approaching Endeavor, so once we've ensured that he won't reveal my identity on accident, we should be good to talk with him in public as long as we keep our voices down, Kurtai muttered as they each selected a random snack that looked appealing to them. While they moved to complete their purchases, his danger sense quirk kept him alerted to the general hostility that Endeavor tended to emanate wherever he went, and he half expected it to spike at any given moment. However, the real surprise came when the quirk suddenly went quiet, just in time for him and Ari to walk out of the little shop, even as Mina approached them with a relaxed look on her face. He understands the situation, she informed them. He did want a quick word with you, though. What about? Kurtai asked, still on edge despite the lack of a presence from Hikage's quirk. He didn't say, but he looks about as chill as anyone's ever seen him, and I don't think he's trying to set you up, she assured him. Plus, Izuku and the others wanted to see you before their flight started loading. Kurtai weighed his options for a moment before he nodded and moved to follow her. Really, what choice did he have? There was more likely to be a scene if he refused the number one hero in a meeting in public, so he might as well do what he could to keep things relatively quiet. That, and he did want to see his friends again before they had to go their separate ways for the upcoming mission. He wouldn't be able to interact with them like he had with Ari. She wasn't a big name from UA, so people didn't recognize her as a hero course student, meaning that him being around her wouldn't draw any close scrutiny on their part. That would not be the case with the others, since their images had been displayed in the news multiple times over the last year. He quickly came within a direct line of sight for the big hero and his 4 interns, and when he did, he gave his peers a friendly grin that one might have given to people when they were meeting for the first time. Of course, for those who knew Kurtai, they knew that he would never do such a thing, were this really the first time meeting someone. Normally, he was reserved and polite upon first interactions, and if he liked the person he had met, he would gradually become more relaxed in his mannerisms. This was more or less his way of sending them the silent message that he was ready to be back in the fight.
Endeavor, Kurdai said as he kept the expression on his face while extending a hand to the flame hero. I'm flattered you want to take a moment to speak to me. How can I assist you? He was aware that there were several dozen eyes upon them now. Inevitable, since the large man was Japan's top hero, but they didn't seem to be looking too closely at the teenager facing him just yet. Endeavor's blue eyes scrutinized him closely before he rumbled, I'd like to invite you and your friends to the Centurion Lounge while we wait for our flights to arrive. There are some things I would like to discuss with a young hero perspective like yourself. The words were delivered in a low tone so that only those directly beside him could hear, which Kurdai was grateful for. I'd be foolish to turn that down, he said with a small incline of his head. I'll follow your lead then. Endeavor returned the nod and directed them toward the roped-off section that was for very limited access members of the credit union partnered with Haneda. When he approached the guard, he showed him his ID and said, They're all with me. Clubhouse regulations state 3 guests per card holder of this tier. The other man replied automatically. What? Sir, if you'll allow me, Weiss said before the large hero lost his temper. Stepping forward, she then showed her own ID to the guard, whose eyebrow went up before he stepped aside with a slight bow of his head. Everything seems to be in order, he said as he undid the rope and allowed them to pass by, Endeavor looking confused as he did. Please enjoy your time in the lounge, Miss Schnee. Thank you, Weiss replied with a charming smile as her friends and mentor moved on ahead of her. Oh, and if it's not too much trouble, there will be an older gentleman coming along in a few minutes. I'd like you to admit him as well. He'll be wearing a yellow cape as part of his hero costume. Of course, Miss Schnee. Much appreciated, she said before moving to join the others, who were waiting on the other side for her. What was that? Mina asked as Weiss swept past her. How'd you score access higher than the number 1 hero? The room was empty of people, save for the bartender, and a young man who was wearing headphones as he stared at a book on the table in front of him. Kurdai sensed no danger from him, which more than likely meant he was not equipped with a listening device. My father owns a large amount of stock in one of the airlines that partners with Centurion Lounge, she answered a trifle smugly as Endeavor went to order a drink. Whether he was doing this to give them a moment alone, none of them were certain, but the teenagers weren't going to look a gift horse in the mouth. You're still able to run favors on your family name? Kurdai asked from the table he had taken in a secluded corner of the room, a lazy smile on his face. Thought your father would have disowned you by now. He has no proof that the recent breach in Schnee Support Industries security has anything to do with me, the pale girl said as she crossed the room to where he was, a stern look on her face. As for you... Come on, I just got out of the hospital. Whoa! His protest was cut off when he found himself seized up in another joint-popping hug, Weiss's strength belying her slender frame. How are you this strong? He grunted out once he understood that he was not about to get slapped, something he now realized he should have recognized sooner, seeing his danger sense had continued to remain quiet. It's your own fault for making us worry so much, she scolded him. Would it have killed you to at least send a text message to say you were okay? My phone got blown up at Kanto, he grumbled as Weiss finally released him. I couldn't have sent a message even if I wanted to. Besides, me and Nakadori were able to let you guys know that I'm alright. It's not the same thing. We're glad to see you again, Izuku said as he took his turn to grab his friend by the shoulders, a wide smile on his face and tears in the corners of his eyes. We weren't looking forward to forming Team Lightning Drop without you. Yeah, okay, you're still taking the role of team captain after we graduate. He chuckled as he returned the grip. I've carried this outfit long enough. I'm also glad to see you, Todoroki added with a rare smile as he shook hands firmly with his returned friend. School certainly hasn't been the same without you. We get it, you all missed him. Bakugo grumbled as he glared at Kurai, who released Todoroki and turned to face the blonde student directly. Doesn't mean jack to me if he isn't coming back for the right reasons. Don't you worry. The silver-haired teenager replied with a snarky grin. I know you've missed me kicking your ass during combat practice. We can get right back to that after we've dealt with Humorize. The hell did you say to Katsuki not in the lounge? Weiss reprimanded him as she yanked his hand down from where it had been drawing back to throw a punch. Katsuki? Kurai repeated, his right eyebrow shooting up at the implications of the explosive student allowing anyone to call him by his first name, a privilege that not even Kirishima, his closest friend at UA, enjoyed. Bakugo's gaze narrowed when Izuku and Todoroki's eyes widened behind their friend. Don't say a word, he warned them. A word, Kurai snickered. Before Bakugo's temper could flare up again, a black whip tendril shot out from behind his rival's back and swallowed up his right hand completely, smothering any attempts at an explosion. By the way, you're dreaming if you think you've got a chance at smoking me, especially after what I was able to pull off in Kanto. They were mostly out of the line of sight from the bar, so no one from the lounge staff had seen the use of their quirks yet. Far from being further enraged, Bakugo suddenly gave vent to a feral grin before he added, You already maxed out your new power. Good. Means I got even more reason to beat you going forward. I look forward to seeing you try. Kurai shot back before he allowed the energy to dissipate, just in time for Todoroki's father to come into their midst, drink in hand. Turning toward the big man, he then said, All right, Endeavor, what do you want to talk about? The number one hero regarded him with another intense gaze before he reached out his hand toward the younger hero with the words, You have my sincerest thanks for saving Shoto's life on Nabu. Without your efforts and sacrifice, I know my son would not be standing here today. Kurai hesitated to take the hand offered to him. He still held a great deal of contempt for Enji Todoroki on account of his crimes against the rest of the Todoroki family, as well as the outright disrespect he had shown at his uncle's funeral, and he doubted that would ever change. However, he also knew that Shoto was choosing to set aside his far more justifiable hatred for the man in order to do what needed to be done, and it was proving to be a more than beneficial experience for him. Holding on to resentments is what landed Mina Tomori in the first place, he thought as he reached out and accepted the offered handshake. You're welcome, he told the large man. I know he would have done the same thing if our positions had been reversed. Even so, consider me in your debt, Endeavor replied, further startling those in attendance. When the day comes when you need help, call on me. I will assist you however I am able. With that, he released Kurai and turned away while saying, Our flight boards in 15 minutes, Shoto. Don't be late. 15 minutes, huh? Mina said as he left the group. Well, it's not long, but I guess we should catch you guys up on a few things while we have the time. They watched him sit down at the bar, where he was soon joined by Gran Torino, who began to speak to the other hero in low tones over a plate of pastries. Not to worry, Eri informed us of everything we need to know regarding the bases of Humorize that the Alliance was able to find. Weiss told them before the Pink Girl could get started. The plan is, once Humorize makes their move, we'll tell the pros that Hikari was able to do some cyber sleuthing that uncovered the hidden base, so we'll be in a perfect position to launch a counteroffensive. Why not just storm them now? Kurai asked with a frown. Because your brother has yet to successfully break into their databanks in order to provide the proof we need to make such a claim, Todoroki told him. It's proving to be very frustrating for him. He's also working to develop a chemical compound that might be able to neutralize Trigger, Eri reminded them. He was running himself pretty ragged when we left UA. If they've got security that's challenging him, these guys might be more prepared for trouble than the League ever was, Kurai said with a small scowl. Damn. It's not often someone can outdo my brother's technical skill. Humorize has some dedicated hands on deck. You done spouting the obvious, Bakugo growled. The point is, we can't just highlight their base on a map, tell the World Alliance, let's go over here, without them asking where we got the information from, Weiss pointed out. If we're going to be keeping your secrets, we need to wait until your brother pulls through or the crisis emerges, so that people won't care how we got the information, so long as we did. That feels like we're playing with fire. No offense, Todoroki, Kurai said with an apologetic gesture in his friend's direction, who merely brushed it aside as inconsequential. In any case, if it comes down to revealing my return, even the secret of our quirk, versus the fate of the planet, that's a no-brainer. We're crushing Humorize, no matter the personal cost. Agreed, Eri nodded. That said, I'm not letting you get yourself killed again. Your primary mission is to save the world. Mine is to make sure you survive doing so. That job's mine from now on, Mina said as she wagged a finger at their friend. I'll let you play sidekick for the role, though. No offense, but what makes you more qualified to protect him than someone with Eri's power? Weiss asked dubiously. Mina smirked triumphantly before she held up her left hand to display her engagement ring, which she had apparently slipped on when everyone else was distracted. Got my qualification right here, she said as she used her other hand to grab onto Kurai. Holy, when did that happen? Izuku blurted out. Just the other day, Kurai answered with a wide grin of his own. It was the sweetest thing, Mina gushed while their friends took the opportunity to inspect the ring. He took me out to the beach after dinner, lit up some fireworks, got down on one knee, the whole works. That's amazing, Eri said with a joyful smile of her own that she directed at the couple. I'm so happy for the both of you. Thanks for making it happen, Kurai told her gratefully. We owe this to you. While Eri blushed and hid her smile behind her bangs, Weiss eyed the jewel with a practiced gaze before she said, That's quite an elegant piece, Hikari. How did you come by something like this? Kurai could guess at the motive behind the seemingly innocent question fairly easily. Clearly, she was worried that Akadori had allowed his brother to use the money she had transferred to him on a personal matter, which would be justification for any potential irritation on her part. In order to prevent that from happening, he was quick to say, It was my mother's ring. Since she's widowed and probably in jail for life, she wanted me to give it to Mina. It's a very generous gift, Todoroki commented, also looking glad for his friends. Congratulations, both of you. I wish you many long years of happiness together. Hear, hear, Eri cheered, followed by echoed sentiments from the others. Well, all of them except Bakugo, that is. What's the point of wearing that thing? He asked in a grumpy manner. Ashido's quirk will just dissolve that as soon as she has to fight. Actually, thanks to my future brother-in-law, that isn't the case. Mina grinned, her good mood refusing to be dissipated. I got the ring a couple of days prior to our Nabu trip beginning, and before we left, I asked Akadori to see if there was a way to make it immune to her acid. Kurai explained. I don't know exactly how he did it, but after I wound up in the hospital, he was able to treat the diamond and metal with some kind of compound so that it won't melt, like her hero costume. Course he did, Bakugo grumbled, with a roll of his eyes, which then landed on Kurai. You better not let this distract you from your goals, Saiyaman. I want you at your best the day I surpass you and become number 1. Actually, that'd make you number 2, because Ares, she may be more powerful, or end up that way, but you're the strongest of them all, Kai. Bakugo snorted as he went to walk away. A core can only take us so far, even the one you've got. Don't forget what it means to be the greatest. As he left, Mina was the one to comment in a surprised tone. That's probably the nicest thing I've ever heard him say. The time that the friends had to catch up was enjoyable but brief, and it wasn't long before Endeavor and his interns had to board their flight. Kurai and the girls left the lounge with Gran Torino, feeling that it wouldn't really be appropriate for them to stay when their hosts had taken their leave. The second that they had stepped out of the secluded area, there was a collective rush of movement and excited squealing that immediately set the teenagers on edge, the first assumption being that someone had recognized Kurai and amassed a group of followers to swarm him in pursuit of answers. This assumption was short-lived, ending as soon as they saw a sizable group of women chasing after hawks, a flustered-looking Tokoyami in tow. Well, at least they're after him, not me, Kurai said with a nervous laugh to break the tension that got his other friends to chuckling, while Endeavor merely scowled at what he obviously considered an unnecessary pandering to the masses. I get the feeling that's going to be you in about 3 years, though. Mina giggled while Kurai shook his hands in farewell with his friends. To them, she said, "Safe flight, guys. See you after we take down Humorize." Ha! Bakugo snorted. "I think we'll see you after we turn the stupid bastard into ash." At this, Kurai turned to Weiss and asked, "So, are you just attracted to delusions of grandeur, or—" "That's it, come here!" The explosive student snarled while Weiss's face did an excellent impression of a tomato. "Whoa, Kachan!" Izuku yelped as he pulled on his peer's shoulder with Todoroki's assistance to keep him away from the grinning Kurai. "Not here! We're at an airport! This is the worst place you could ever use your quirk! I don't need a quirk to roast his smug ass!" "You young people waste too much energy." Gran Torino grumbled as Endeavor led his arguing interns away with an exasperated look on his face. "Well, look at it this way," Kurai replied as he maintained his grin contentedly. "Now they'll be trapped in a plane for a few hours and nothing to do. That's not going to do the Humorize members that he finds any favors." "You riled him up so he'd go ham on Humorize?" Mina asked with a raised eyebrow. "Honey, I'm so proud of you." When they exchanged the high five, this led Gran Torino to roll his eyes again. Just like Nana and her husband. The flight went without incident, and the heroes found themselves checked into a pair of hotel rooms at a fairly nice establishment before dinner. Gran Torino and Kurai would be sharing one room, while the girls set up in the other. At the old man's insistence, they all donned their hero gear and prepared to go out on patrol. As Kurai went to retrieve his clothes from the briefcase, he was surprised to realize there were more items in it than he had initially assumed when he checked it at the airport. In addition to his blue and orange gi, he was surprised to find an identical set of clothing that lay beneath it, save that the color theme had changed to be black with a white sash. Narrowing his eyes, he searched for the personal note that he now knew would be with the instruction manual, and sure enough, there was a short letter from Makaruri clipped to his scouter that he quickly opened. "Your new look might need some new threads, but I kept your old gear just in case you were more comfortable with it." The note read, "You can swap out the blue scouter lens with a spare that I left with an uncolored tint if you decide to go with the new gi. Your sword isn't ready yet, but when I finish it, it will function as before, as I'm reworking the internal mechanisms to charge based on the bioelectricity generated by your new quirk, so that you don't have to worry about maintaining the batteries on the thing. It may take a little longer to charge them with Energon, but once the cell is at capacity, there should be no difference in functionality from there on. In the meantime, I hope you enjoy the new gi." Even he couldn't have thrown this together in a day, especially with everything that's going on right now, he thought as he put the letter down. How long has he been working on this? "You gonna stand there gawking all afternoon, or you gonna help me find some villains?" Gran Torino grumbled, startling Kurai out of the thoughts that the note had brought up from him. "Sorry, just let me get changed," he apologized. "I'll be ready in 2 minutes, sir." So saying, he snatched up the briefcase and its contents before he rushed into the bathroom. When the two heroes met the heroines in the hallway, both the girls were surprised to see Kai's new costume, though they had to admit it complemented his new appearance quite well. Only Gran Torino seemed to have reservations as they headed outside to patrol the area. "You sure about changing up your look so much?" he asked the boy. "You've already been well established with the other outfit." "I'm kind of going for the unobtrusive approach right now." Kai shrugged as they stepped into the warm afternoon of a busy city street. "My last look paired better with my ability to turn my hair every color of the rainbow, which is no longer the case. Besides, didn't All Might go through like 4 or 5 wardrobe changes with different color themes before he settled on the Golden Age look?" "You're no All Might yet, Sonny. I never wanted to be, and yet everyone around me seems to love reminding me of the similarities that exist." The Guardian hero grumbled, usually the more negative tendencies. "Hey, what'd I say about Pessimist and Buster?" Ashley Queen reminded him playfully, which drew a grin out of him. "Oh, come on, you know I've always been a..." He paused mid-reply, a frown swiftly returning to his face as he swung his head across the street, his gaze locking onto a small passerby with a bright orange skin and a single antenna sticking straight up who was walking in front of a high-end restaurant. What his quirk was, Kai had no idea, but his danger sense quirk was practically lighting him up like a big neon sign that read, "Bad news." Before the others could ask him what was wrong, he said in a hard tone, "Orange guy needs a takedown, now." "I'm on it," Cronoa said before anyone else could react. With a rush of wind and lightning, she appeared in front of the small man, her red eyes glaring down mightily at her target. Her sudden movements startled a number of pedestrians who backed away from the unfolding scene, even as black tendrils of energy appeared to form a makeshift barricade that kept anyone who might be curious from getting closer. As Kai approached with Ashley Queen in tow, he reflected that while Clade certainly had heroes to keep the peace, they didn't have very many champions with quirks as flashy as theirs. Hopefully, even after we get some airtime, no one will connect the dots before we lose the element of surprise. He thought as his fiancée moved to assist an elderly person who had lost their footing in the surprise of the moment. With no discernible effort, Cronoa seized the sparking man up by the collar and snapped, "Shut off your quirk or I toss you sky high!" Her bearing and tone had changed so drastically that she almost reminded her friends of Bakugo, and it was a little unnerving if they were being honest. "And why should I do that?" her detainee grunted as he tried to pry her fingers loose from his shirt to no avail. "I got nothing against you, but the greedy bastards that own this joint are going to lose every dime this place is worth. If you get caught up in what comes next, I won't lose much sleep over it." His antenna was spitting enough sparks to resemble the fireworks Mina and Kurai had celebrated with 2 nights ago, and smoke coming from his ears was almost pitch black. "I warned you," Cronoa shot back. There was a flash of golden light. Suddenly the smoke and sparks had completely dissipated. "What?" The man mumbled, clearly disoriented. "I reversed impact before he activated his quirk, whatever it is," Cronoa told the others as they approached, right before she delivered a knockout blow to his skull, leaving him as an unconscious mess on the sidewalk. "He won't be blowing up any stores for a while." "I thought you were actually going to throw him," Ashley Queen admitted as she eyed their friend with new appreciation. "Nice thinking, girl." "Those were some fast reaction times," Gran Torino commented as he walked up and prodded the insensate man with his staff. "Not even 5 minutes out, you've already got yourselves a villain in the bag. Not bad for a bunch of newbies." "You call that not bad?" Cronoa asked with a slightly arched eyebrow. "Also, you can hardly call us newbies at this point. I've survived a literal apocalypse. They've defeated All For One's copycat." "Yeah, I didn't see you coming up with a way to stop him with 0 collateral damage," Kai remarked right before Gran Torino's boot collided with his face, leaving him with a scuff mark and a slightly exasperated expression in his wake. "There's your collateral damage, wise guy!" the elder hero snapped as he glared up at his young charge. "All right, I deserve that."
Never took the backseat or wonder what's a dream without a goal to conquer. Just a painful reminder. I've seen for miles how the river only bends and the 2 sides meet again. Put your head to bed, or you'll never see the end. Be the one they choose to follow. Would you run towards your failures every day, just to prove that nothing's standing in your way? In the moments I could feel it, when my sacrifice was needed, before they could even see me, I was there, like a flash of lightning.
All right, so more of a, like, I don't know if we could call this one quite a filler chapter because there are some important things that happen in it, but I would call it's more of a setup chapter for what comes next.
Yeah, there's going to be some, there's a little bit of rising action toward the end, but we open with a little bit of anxiety on the part of Kurai, who's kind of coming off of not having his meds for a few days.
Yeah, so real quick, we're going to get into the science of this, and I will preface this by saying that some of Kurai's like the way he's feeling physically and like what's happening in his body is actually somewhat based off of things that I've experienced myself. So that being that when you're on these kinds of medications, especially the kind that have to do with your brain, they are made in a...
They have a half-life.
They have a half-life.
72 hours, right?
Yeah, they exist within your body for up to 72 hours, even after you've missed a dose. So, having
at least
done this...
they exist in a usable
manner.
Because they have a longer half-life, but it's not necessarily going to affect your brain chemistry a whole lot when it's at the small amounts.
Yeah, but it's still there. It still helps to mitigate the symptoms that you're dealing with. So, me being on a certain amount of medication, if I miss 1 day or so because I forgot, I can take a regular dose the next day and my body continues on and it's fine. Now, if I miss 2 days or 3 days, that's when we start to have a problem. And for Kurai, he's up to the 4th day where he has not had his sleep medications happening. And those
so he's dealing with some PTSD nightmares at this point.
Yeah, just if you don't sleep well, like I don't, everybody dreams, but I never remember my dreams. If I don't get a good night's sleep, like I'm not great the next day. Like having that on top of like just seeing all the bad things while you are asleep, like he cannot be doing well right now.
Yeah.
Like the fact that he's as okay as he is really a testament to like how far he's come. Because he's certain his again, like this is something that's based on my own experiences. Like even without my medication, if I recognize the fact that I'm without my medication, there are steps that I can take in my headspace to help me get through the day and all that.
You have your tools.
Yeah, I have my tools, and Kurai would have learned some of the same. So he's able to function, but if you go on too long without it, bad things start happening.
Yeah, so he's not at his best.
He's not at his best, but he's certainly not at his worst either. And given everything that's happening around him right now, like it could certainly be worse for him.
Yes.
But he's in a good place again. I think the biggest thing for him at this moment is that how like stable his life feels at this point, because like all the uncertainty about himself has been removed. He knows he's like, all right, it wasn't his first choice, but he knows why he has to be a hero again. And there's no half-assing it.
He's no stranger to entering these tense situations.
Yes, there's no half-assing it. He's and like to a degree, you're right. He's in his element. Like
well, that's how, when you are really highly trained in something, you just snap into gear when you're in that situation, and you learn to put the personal feelings aside. And a lot of my friends who work in the medical field, they say like I can't bring my emotions into this. Like maybe I'll have to deal with it later, but I've just got to switch into my clinical brain and go from there. And as a teacher, it makes sense too, because I cannot be taking out my emotions on these little babies. I can be going through something, but that does not give me a right to be a jerk, And so I totally snap into a completely different mode when I'm in my teaching element. Yeah. And when I'm in my presenting element, because I do a lot of work with other teachers too. And so it's, I think by the same token, he's no stranger to entering really tense situations. Yeah. And it's kind of funny though, because he has more anxiety about the social aspect of getting called out by the media than he does about going and facing certain death, facing
world-ending catastrophes. Yeah, he's like no. He's like, oh, is it Tuesday already?
Exactly.
No. So it's interesting. So for me, it's actually there's a physical manifestation for me of what we've been talking about with him, is that so I have psychosymptomatic tremors in my right arm. My right arm basically doesn't stop shaking, which makes it very difficult to draw sometimes. But I do it because it's awesome.
And I think it's good for you.
It is good physical therapy for me. But what's interesting about me is that if you ever see me go into a martial arts setting, whether it be in grading or if I'm teaching or if I'm just going through the forms and stuff, you will note that my arm stops shaking.
Yep.
Or if I get into a corner if I get cornered in a social setting where someone really pisses me off, if someone is paying attention, you will see that my right arm stops shaking because I have settled into my element. I am in my natural state.
Your brain just clicks.
My brain clicks into I take full, basically my brain allows me to take full control over everything that's happening in my body and is geared for that fight or flight.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because for a lot of people it's the opposite. They get that surge of adrenaline and all that, and they start shaking and they hardly know what to do with themselves. Me, that's when I'm technically at my most calm.
Yeah, because you may call it muscle memory or just
it's mental conditioning.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's not a mental. It is nerve damage in my arm, but the nerve damage is a result of the psychosymptomatic tremors.
And there's a level of intentionality about it too.
Yes, absolutely. But yeah, so again, a lot of the stuff that Kurai is dealing with here and will be dealing with going forward, because you guys know I'm not going to make this easy for him going forward. A lot of it is going to be to some degree based on the things that I have to deal with in my mental struggles, which you guys know I've well experimented with in the character Mataris, but that's more dealing with the emotional issues that I've had to deal with. This is something more of an experiment in dealing with the physical manifestations
Yes.
of my problems. So I'm like, and I didn't intend it that way, but like as I've continued to write the character, I realized where these issues are coming from.
Yeah.
And like, it's interesting because like technically both of these aspects for these different characters come from the same source, but I'm handling two different aspects entirely that come from the same problem for each character.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be
It's funny how little pieces of ourselves end up in our art, whether we like it or not.
Yeah,
Because you were trying to branch out, and you have branched out.
I have branched out, I think.
But it's you're still expressing yourself in a different way.
Yeah.
Leaving a little imprint of yourself.
For sure. So yeah, we got the scene where Aries happy to see him again. I thought their scene was kind of cute. She's excited to see her hero, and he's like he's happy to see her. Like, and it's very interesting to him because like doing his voice work especially, I try to go for like my voice work is nothing to write home about, but like in terms of intention, I'm trying to have him where it's like he almost wants to talk to her like he's talking to the little Aerie, but he has to stop just short of that
because he knows like
because she's very she's still very special to him.
Yeah.
Because like this, like he knows this is still the same girl that he rescued all those years ago. Like for him it was months ago, for her it was years ago, but the events are so important to the both of them. That's still that part of her he still knows very well. Obviously she's changed a lot since then, but there's still that familiar element there where it's like he's addressing her with this familiarity and this warmth that he doesn't share with a whole lot of people. But he has to stop. He has to stop it from going all the way until like, oh, this is a little kid that I have to protect. No, this is somebody who's like coming up and is like, all right, let's go get the bad guys.
Yeah, but it's nice too because they're able to kind of have the brief interactions with their friends and see them, and of course, Weiss and Endeavor. That moment was hilarious.
Real quick before we move on to that, I wanted to say that like about Akururi, like just that moment because like Aerie. Akururi is like he's a sassy guy. He's out to cause mayhem for the bad guys, but I think for her it was kind of interesting getting that perspective from Kurta. It's just like, nah, he's kind of petty sometimes. Yeah, he does shenanigans, but there's always a purpose behind it.
Yeah.
He never did shenanigans just to do the shenanigans. So to her, like him is like, yeah, man, he keeps sticking chocolate in my pants, and I hate that. To her, that's just like, what? Why would he do that? So for her, it's like this disconnect almost that she has to understand. It's like, oh, for her, it's like it's the same thing as him addressing her, but in reverse. Because it's like, oh, these people haven't done all these things yet. They're still back to their childhood. They're back to things that I didn't even know would know existed because by the time I started paying attention, it wasn't important.
Yeah.
So it's this dual reversal from both sides that's really like I'm having fun with the dynamic, but it's a really interesting balancing act.
Yeah.
Trying to remember they have to constantly remember this is like I'm addressing.
This is not the person. This is the person I know, but it's not the person I know.
Yeah. This is the person I know, but not with the experiences that I know. So yeah, sorry. Yeah, getting onto the Weiss outclassing Endeavor bit. That was just funny.
Oh man,
that was so funny. I was like, I feel like the best scenes for me are the ones that are just happening like as I'm writing, and I don't even think about them going into it.
This is just what this character would do.
It just happens.
Yeah.
So like I was looking up the rules for like the Centurion Lounge, and I'm like, what's the highest tier that you can afford? And for like the Gold Centurion Lounge or whatever it is, like card holders generally can only bring up to 3 people in. I'm sure that there are exceptions, but like on the official guidelines, it's three guests per card holder.
Yeah.
So like I was just like, all right, so that's what Endeavor can do. But I'm like, but then there's the rich, they're like.
If you're a stockholder,
I'm like, I don't okay. So here's like a lot of people will harp on like the injustices of like the rich getting richer and all that. I'm like, I'm not here to talk about that too much because I'm like, you know what? There are certain trust fund kids annoy me because I'm like, you didn't earn your money. That's daddy or mommy's money. That's not yours. People who are self-made who get to make that much money, I'm like, you know what? You earn that money. You decide what you do with it.
But at the same time, Weiss, that's just part of her character.
Yeah. So Weiss is one of those shareholders, is one of those trust fund kids that would definitely annoy me. But at the same time, for the purposes of the story, I don't mind exploiting the advantages that she has because of her family name. Because this was just like it didn't even like if I had planned it out, it would have been planned out as a way to like disgruntle Endeavor.
Yeah.
But that just happened by proxy, and that's why I was like, as I started writing, I was laughing to myself because I'm like, this is great. But yeah, we get that scene, we get the bit where the friends get to catch up and all that. Which was really nice. I wish that I could have done a little bit more of a conversation between Deku and Kurai, because there are just some things that need to be said between them that don't even have to do with One for All and Energon being swapped.
But they just don't really get a whole lot of opportunity, unfortunately. And...
Yeah. What did you think of Endeavor approaching Kurai the way that he did?
I think I was feeling a little bit apprehensive, just like Kudai was, but I think it made sense.
For context, the last time they saw each other was when they were both in the hospital following the Nomu attacks in Fukuoka.
I appreciate that, you know, you're not doing the thing that you've done in the past where you take a character you don't like and just make them dumber than they already are.
Like,
and I like how you're kind of keeping his humanity, and you're saying, no, like at this point in the story, he's really trying. He's a prick, but he's trying.
Well, yeah, like even Kudai's like, I don't think I'm ever going to stop hating this guy, but he's looking at Todoroki, who has way more reasons to hate Endeavor. And he's like, all right, he's setting it aside, and me holding on to stuff is probably what landed me in the mental hospital in the first place, so here we go.
And so that's, you know, giving our guy a little bit of growth here.
Yeah.
But no, it's cool to have that chat and then
like
move on.
Yeah, where Endeavor's character is at this point in the story, I feel like this is something he would do.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So, I mean, after was there anything else with like the friend interactions that you wanted to go over?
Weiss and Bakugo are dating now, so that's fun.
Yeah.
That was fun. That was a funny reveal, I thought. Like that one was planned on my
part.
part.
I thought that one was revealed already.
So it was revealed that they were dating in the future, more or less. I mean, as much as you can date somebody in that context, but it hadn't happened in this timeline yet.
Okay, nice.
So Kurai's just kind of like, excuse me?
He played him like a fiddle.
No, he didn't play anybody. Weiss accidentally let it slip because she called Bakugo by his first name.
He
took full advantage. Yeah, we see Kurai being related to Akurui here because he sees this opportunity and he just starts antagonizing Bakugo like no tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, oh, so you have a girlfriend now? That's cute. Shut up. Tries to do explosions. Blocks him with Black Whip. Nah, man, don't. He's like, not even on your best day.
Oh man!
But then on the other hand, you know, you got Bakugo who's excited again because he's like, oh, okay, all right. So now he's like, I've got my goal back.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, all right, I can shoot for something again.
Yes.
And I thought, to me, it was interesting. I had a hard time deciding for a while, like, who was Bakugo going to set himself against more, like in a rival turn, because like he's always going to have a thing going with Deku, right? There's just too much history there for them not to regard one another as rivals, like that they will always try to surpass one another. But in terms of Bakugo's personal goals, he always wanted to surmount All Might. But in this version of the story, he's come to realize that All Might isn't number one anymore. And I went back and forth for a while in deciding whether or not he was going to settle on Kurai being the one that he needed to surpass, or if it was Eri. Now, technically, Eri is the one who will become more powerful eventually because she's the 11th wielder.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, just I don't even know that I can say exactly why.
I almost feel like he just wants to stay in his lane.
How do you mean?
She's not in the right timeline. Like, and I'm sure there'll be a certain amount of competition later on down the line.
Like, I couldn't even put it into words, I don't think, why he has chosen Kurai to be the one that he's aiming to surpass.
Well, it's because of One for All.
Eri has One for All. Eri has One for All as well.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, it's a combination of things because, like, he and Kurai have built their own history at this point. Because, like, you know, Kurai has been showing him up since day one, right? Bakugo hated that. But as time went on, Kurai's dad died to help find him. They found out, you know,
He also, I don't think...
Kurai sacrificed his arm to get him to safety. Like, you know, much as Bakugo's a brat, you know, he does feel a sense of debt to people.
Also, try as he might, I don't think he'll ever see Eri as a peer, even though she is their age now. Because it's like, even though he doesn't have a whole lot of close interaction with little Eri, the whole class has come to feel like this stewardship over her.
Yeah.
And I think that he's, no matter what, still going to see her as that little girl.
Okay.
You know? And, yeah, I think he respects the power, but like you said, he has this relationship with Kudai. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's more what I was trying to say.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, like, I don't know. Like, it just, if, I honestly can't justify it anything beyond the sense that, like, this is, like, given everything I know about Bakugo's...
He's a chauvinist pig, that's why.
Like, just given everything I know about Bakugo's personality and, like, the way that his character's been developing so far, it just feels to me that he would respect Kurai the most. That I think that maybe that's what it boils down to, is his sense of respect for Kurai cannot be surmounted because he literally saw Kurai die to protect all of them. And he knows that there's, like, so many heroes who wouldn't go that far.
Yeah.
Like, they're just in it for the fame and money.
That makes sense.
And to him, like, being the hero is is what it's all about.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
I think if I had to put it into words, that's probably why Bakugo would say he would regard Kai more highly than Cronoa. But
that being said,
we had what'd you think of the costume change for Kurai?
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah, he changed into his black and white uniform at this point.
That's right. Yeah, because everybody has their upgraded cool uniforms at this point.
Well, I mean, there's like, honestly, the only difference in it is its aesthetic. Like, functionally, it's the same.
I prefer it because the other colors were just so obnoxious.
The blue and orange?
Ugh.
You hated the blue and orange?
I hated the blue and orange.
Really?
Yeah, I Saiyan Man. It was just obnoxious. He's either a Super Saiyan or a Broncos fan, which I don't have a problem with the Broncos, or Super Saiyans, but no, it just didn't. The blue and orange never sat right with me. So
really?
I like the black.
I did not know that.
I went along with your aesthetic choice because I'm like, okay, he wants to go with clashing colors because
it's complementary colors, not clashing colors.
Well, complementary colors clash. That's the whole point of complementary colors. They clash.
No. I feel like pink and orange, they're not complementary colors.
Who
but
went
they
to
clash.
art school?
Who knew it was tertiary colors the other day?
Yeah. I've done a lot more painting and color theory. So, what I'm saying, the whole reason...
Guys, the looks I'm getting from my wife, if I don't turn up sometime in the next few days, you know who did it.
Are you going to let me finish, sir?
Go ahead.
Complementary colors clash. That's why you notice them. That's the whole point. They're basically the farthest away from each other that they can be.
And black and white are not clashing?
Not in an obnoxious way. They're not colors, they are shades. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Black and white are shades. They are not colors. At least in the way you created it. Now, if the black had a blue tint to it and the white had an orange tint to it, that would be obnoxious. Because it would be like pastel kudai. But no, that's not what you meant. Little Gen X kudai. Anyway, sorry, it drives me crazy how, like, I love that a lot of 90s style and early 2000s styles are coming back, but the freaking pastel colors on the boys, I can't get behind.
Nah, that's not a good look.
It drives me crazy.
That's not a good look.
Anyway, what you were saying about pink and orange, all it comes down to is the intensity of the color. If you have intense pink and intense orange, yeah, they're going to be obnoxious. But depending on how muted they are, they can work.
Okay.
Right? It's all about the intensity of the color, whether it's a tint, whether it's a shade, the temperature of it. Maybe it's a cool pink. Maybe it,
Yeah.
Maybe it's a super obnoxious. Sorry. That being said, I prefer the black and the white.
Okay.
It's high contrast.
Cool.
It looks nice.
No, yeah, I like the way that it looks as well. This to me felt like another step in him moving toward his own identity, as opposed to like he's always been very he hasn't always been self-assured in knowing who he is because the whole Nomu thing, and he's like, oh, I'm a prototype Nomu. Okay, that's great. But like this is, I feel like, a good... I think Akudori knew that it was time for a change. It was time for a change.
Mm-hmm. He's kind of come into his own in a different way now.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then I think you mentioned something about how you had an issue with the way that they handled.
Oh yeah.
The takedown at the end of the chapter.
And after talking with you about it, I get it more, but it kind of bugged me because, what breaking it down, Kudai's danger sense alerts him to this passerby. Mm-hmm. The guy hasn't even done anything. He can't read his mind. So I'm like, if you were to actually like bring him to the authorities and get him arrested, they wouldn't have, unless the only reason he would be able to be kept is because he, after being knocked off his feet, declared his intent, which in reality probably wouldn't have happened because it would have been like, man, why are these stupid heroes knocking me? I was just minding my own business.
That would be a career criminal.
Yeah.
That's how you can tell the difference between a career criminal and
this
someone
guy was just kind of unhinged.
Yeah.
And so what I was thinking is, it's very, very lucky for them that the guy declared his intent, because in all reality, if this was literally any other crook, practically...
You'd be surprised at the number of criminals that admit to what they were going to do just in front of the cops, like as they've been detained. As someone
who grew up in the Valley and personally knew a lot of gang kids and teaches the children of a lot of gang members.
There are an infinite number of videos on the internet that will show you criminals are stupid.
People post the ones that are stupid.
But the fact that they happen that often should lend itself to the idea that it's not that impossible to think, oh, there's a criminal out there who would run his mouth when he got caught.
Yeah, it's because this particular guy just happened to be an idiot. But it's like most people who are doing this kind of thing, that would not happen. Like,
I'm not saying that a grand majority of criminals do this. I am saying that it's not enough to be called a rarity, though.
Yeah, but I mean, in all reality, these guys would have just gotten in trouble for excess brutality of just a civilian walking by, and they're not even in their own country. So they would have gotten in really big trouble. They are lucky he said what he was going to do. And 9 times out of 10, that would not happen. Maybe it's just because
4 times out of 5.
We'd have to look into that, because most of the people I know who've been in and out of jail and in and out of things with the stuff with law enforcement are they're gonna have that smart. So it's like, oh, why?
But these are people who have been, like you just said, in and out of jail. It's not the same as like this dude's like he's having a bad day and he's going unhinged. On a one-off.
Yeah, no. That's why I say they are lucky. Okay? Because, and I think in all reality, somebody's got to pull, because Kudai just said, ooh, keep an eye on this guy.
He said that one needs a takedown, but he didn't say how they should do it.
And he shouldn't have done that. He was wrong. Somebody needs to sit him.
He wasn't wrong, though. His ability told him, this dude's gonna do something that's gonna hurt people.
Yeah, and you have 2 people with one for all who are extremely fast, and the moment he does something, they could have taken him down.
The moment that he does something is the moment that his quirk goes off, and that's when he explodes or what have you. Like
whatever.
What do you want Eri to do? Rewind time by like 10 seconds so that the explosion doesn't go off?
She's fine. Sure.
No, because then we have 3 Aries running around. Because it wouldn't actually... Because the way that her time travel works, it's not actually her traveling back in time. She's reversing everything around her. So when she reversed things back 10 seconds, there's the Aerie from 10 seconds ago.
She doesn't.
So then there's 2 adult Aeries.
She's not going to duplicate herself.
That's what would happen. Her version of time travel is she reverses everything except for herself.
Why couldn't she just reverse him and the building?
She doesn't have good enough control to just... she doesn't have good enough to control... So she how do I put this? She's good at reversing people one at a time, but like physical matter that exists outside of people, she's only done that when it's directly attached to one person, like clothing and stuff, that she can regenerate. But on a bigger scale like that, she doesn't know how to control her powers to that degree. Also, there's any number of people that could have gotten hurt in there.
I will maintain that it was not handled properly, and the pro heroes would 100% sit them down and be like, that was a dumbass call.
Okay.
Like, I guarantee you. And it's just like, Ari, I realize you grew up in complete anarchy, but this is not how we do things. You can't just take someone out without proper cause. It's like, yeah, it's lucky he said what he was going to do, because if he didn't, and if he was like, oh wow, why'd this hero just jump me for no reason when I was just walking down the street, then they'd have to talk to the authorities and be like, yeah, how did you, well, I knew, hit my danger sense. It's like, well, how do we know you interpreted it correctly? Yeah, we know how your quirk works, but are you interpreting correctly? Was it the right person? Right? So yeah, no, that whole part just bugged the heck out of me. I'm sorry. That's just how I feel. We'll move on. We're gonna have to.
You were laughing at the bit where Gran Torino kicks Kurt in the face.
Well, yeah, because that's on brand. That's on brand.
Again, I think it's like I think I had like 3 or 4 moments in this chapter where it was like, no, I didn't even plan this. This just happened.
No, yeah, no. The character interactions were on brand. I just think that whole scenario was dumb. Sorry.
Okay.
I love you. You know I do, and we're just gonna have to agree to disagree on this one.
Okay.
We'll see what the fans think.
I get a veto because I'm the writer.
Yeah, whatever. That being said, thank you for hanging in there with us and listening to the story, and then
we've got the 100th podcast coming up in a couple of months. Coming up in a couple of months here.
And I just unearthed like all of the prizes that we have.
Yep, there's going to be for our Discord members. There's going to be some prizes done by random draw, and then there's going to be one prize that I'm going to set up for a little competition. Whoever wins that is going to get said prize, but I'm not going to disclose the details of said prize until the 99th podcast.
Nice.
So
cool. Yeah, I was just kind of unearthing those. So a couple months, we'll hit the 100th podcast, and then you'll have an announcement.
Yes, I will.
At that point too.
Yes.
So cool. All right.
We will catch you guys on the next one. I hope you have a plus ultra a couple of weeks. Until then.